Welcome, everybody, to the official kickoff and happy hour for the Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention 2025. Joining me is the man himself, Mr. Brandt, who is the chief organizer and architect of this entire affair. Brandt, how's it going?
Well, I'd say it's probably giving me too much credit for this, but there's a reason I'm asking for help. So
We'll cover that. I'm going to plug that for you. You don't even worry about it. We will cover it on this episode tonight. So, because we are an opening happy hour, folks, I felt obliged to bust out Wild Turkey 101 because it's been that kind of a day. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm sticking with the old reliable macro built alcoholic cider, but it's good. I like it. It tastes nice and it doesn't drive me.
I also like cider, hard cider. However, if I drink an entire bottle of it will tend to sour my stomach.
Yeah.
So I will be happy to taste it if it comes up. But and I do like cider and Perry too. If you ever had Perry,
I've not.
I like pears. So I like Perry even better than cider. But you can't find it around here very easily. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess some friends of mine who are a couple years younger than you and I. Cider was a thing.
An increasingly large percentage of the population.
Oh, yeah. Yes, no kidding. Somewhere in the mid to late 90s, cider became kind of the in thing to do on college campuses.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was the backlash.
That's because you couldn't get Zima anymore.
I guess. I think it was the backlash to IPAs, maybe.
That's possible.
That I've once heard IPAs described as pumpkin spice lattes for guys, which I think is really funny. So
not bad. Not bad.
But I had my first encounter with some cider at a microbrewery out in San Luis Obispo, California, before there was a microbrewery on every street corner in every town.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, this shit's pretty good. I'm going to have to do this more often. And
we literally, in the extremely not urbanized suburb of Akron, Ohio that I live in, there is a microbrewery.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
I seem to recall, I always mentally associate Zima, which I believe they brought back, by the way. I always mentally associate it with Babylon 5 because it was right around that same period where people were drinking Zima.
Yep.
And there was a thing on the show called the Zocalo, which was like this big bizarre type market, and it's similar name. So and I think they advertised on Babylon 5 too.
I remember a lot of folks when we would grab lunches on campus, we'd walk right across Hillsborough Street and go sit down at some local sandwich place, whatever. And I remember a whole lot of folks wanting to grab a Zima while they were there. I'm like, it's carbonated cough syrup. Like, I'm good.
It is carbonated and alcoholic. I didn't think it was particularly nasty, but there was a certain reputation that you would get as a Zima drinker around that period. But now you got that hard seltzer stuff floating around too.
Yeah.
So that's basically Zima.
Yeah. Well, except that you can get White Claw in a variety of flavors. And
that's true.
And it was funny. The whole time I was working the concessions desk at soccer, the check-in desk and concession, because we had alcohol and we used to joke, when we get parents come in, we're like, we need some Powerade for the kids. We need adult Powerade for the parents. And
right.
And we started stocking White Claw, and it was funny. Whenever the guys would come up and buy some White Claw, they were always careful to point out it's for my wife.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Yeah. So that, I just couldn't do it. Wasn't a huge fan of the wine coolers. I don't like super bitter beers. I like something a little more robust, a good lager. But for whatever reason, I've taken a shine to ciders. They don't give me a headache. I don't feel like crap the next morning. I can put away 4 or 5 ciders in a day and still survive the next day. So it's nice. So
I'm not a big wine guy, so it's pretty much whiskey. I manage not getting a hangover by just not drinking that much, to be completely honest. This is probably, if I'm pouring a second one here, folks, you'll know how bad a day it's been. So let's talk about the Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention, which, if I'm not mistaken, is currently running. What events are running right now?
Well, so actually,
or tonight, anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up a slightly different screen for you here to show folks, if you don't mind, real quick. That's our agenda for the weekend.
Ugh.
Now, we're at the, and it's not that I want people to try and read this thing necessarily. It's just,
well, that's good, because I can't.
A lot of shit going on, right? I mean, we get Code Atlas is about to start, and I'm not sure if Code Atlas had folks signed up for tonight's game. Just they're up against us, and so I think that kind of screwed them up a little bit. But tonight we've still got a Rebels and Patriots American War of Independence skirmish minis game going on right now, and then Squadron Strike, so space dogfighting going on right now.
3D space dogfighting.
Yes, 3D. And you can do it without installing software on your machine, because everything is played in a web app, which is really kind of cool.
You've got a web app for it, which once you get the hang of it, it does take quite a bit of the burden off of the 3D stuff.
Yeah. So Ken Burnside is the main dude behind Ad Astra Games. He's not the only dude there, but he's the main guy behind him. And one thing that Ken is fantastic at is simplifying complex geometry. He's been able to take wacky 3D visualizations of all sorts of in-flight combat and reduce it all down to a two-dimensional plane that makes sense, which is hard to do, and he's in it.
I've told Ken that I refuse to play his game again until he brings in rules for time dilation, however. So,
yeah.
I don't know how it's gonna do that, but
yeah. Well, the point of bringing this up, like I said, it wasn't to try and force people to read tiny print on a calendar. It was just to show we got a pretty robust program this weekend. With a whole lot of stuff going on. And what's nice is we did get some folks put some games in some earlier time slots, so folks in Europe would be able to participate also. And I'm sure none of them are watching this show because it's like 1 a.m.
No, it is fuck this o'clock in Central European time right now.
Exactly. But for tomorrow morning, like Keith Tracton just popped in and said hi. He's running his Raider Drop Zone game tomorrow morning. We've got a Levy and Campaign game. We've got Tim's True Command game. So we've got a bunch of stuff happening early, and then it runs all throughout the day. So today, look, it's Friday. It's still a work day for us here in the U.S. And so we got some decent attendance at some of the later games. Some of the earlier ones, some of the noon and 1 o'clock starts weren't hugely populated, but they all still happened, which was cool. So, it's a good mix this year of traditional tabletop games and minis games, of course, all played in Vassal Tabletop Simulator, whatever. But it's a pretty solid mix. We've got a couple of good minis games out there, and we've got a really good genre and era spread, right? So we've got Epipolae, which is the Ancients game, all the way up through. We've got like 3 different sci-fi games floating around out there between Squadron Strike and the Raider Drop Zone and Code Atlas. It's like modern near future global warfare, sort of supremacy 25 years.
Yeah, I'm actually in their Discord server, believe it or not. I'm keeping an eye on that project. So it's the kind of thing that I may not pick up and I may never play, but I also might pick it up or play it. So map in the background, and Mark McNair is Stalingrad Roads from Nuts Publishing, because I had it in the StreamYard already, and it wasn't something that I use all the time, nor so specific that it would feel weird if I pulled up the Dead Squad map.
James is doing that one tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern tomorrow. James Buckley's doing Stalingrad Roads tomorrow.
Oh, excellent. So pop into that. Folks, there is a link to the convention webpage in the video description. So if you are not yet signed up, now's the time. How much does it cost, Brant?
$4.
Practically free. So you can't even buy a cheeseburger for $4 anymore.
The early bird tickets are all gone, thankfully.
What was the deal with the early bird, though?
So the way we set up our conventions, the ones that we run and actually pay for, is we'll set up 10 or 12 or 15 or so badges at a discounted rate. So if you grab one of those first as an early bird, you save an extra $1.50, whatever. So,
Brant, they're $4.
Yeah.
What's the point of the discount? It's $4.
Some people want to save $1 wherever they can. So we give them...
You need big splash graphics. Sale, early bird. That's what you need. You got to sell it.
Yeah.
So it is a good idea for promotional purposes. Although for $1, who cares? I can buy nothing for $1.
Well, and for the ACDCs, it's not as big a deal, but like for the fall assembly, when we do that one, and it's like
I could buy 1/1300th of a case blue for $1.
You buy 2 spare counters from Case Blue is what you
Oh no, those are about $6 a piece. I've inquired. So, and I do have a Case Blue with a bunch of missing counters. So, speaking of Case Blue, I'm pleased to report that Forgotten Battles arrived today, and to my shock, they sent me a playtester copy.
And it arrived today.
Yeah, and well, they did send it in 2 separate boxes because I ordered 2 of them, but a third one came, and I looked, and they did give me a playtest credit. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it, but they spelled my name wrong. They spelled it the bad way, which I try to avoid at all costs. Wow. When we were buying the house, my wife was in this huge project at work, so I ended up making all the phone calls to get the utilities set up, right? And it was all done over the phone. So the first bill, I might have been the gas bill, might have been the electric bill, I forget. Shows up, might have been the garbage bill, who knows? The bill shows up, and my name is spelled Jerry Mango, Mangoe. So I was tempted to make T-shirts, Jerry Mango, or change the channel name, but I did not do that.
For the 3rd time now, we have a box on the way from Lock and Load Publishing, some review copies for the writers to cover stuff here for the site. And it is coming to the Armchair Dragoons.
That's fantastic. This
is now the 3rd time David has sent stuff to the Armchair Dragoons.
The Armchair Dragoons. That makes me hungry for some delicious Chinese food, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if that is a real Chinese thing or not, but who knows?
I don't know, but you're not going to want them in you probably don't want them in an armchair either. So
no, probably not.
But yeah, I've corrected him twice before. At this point, I give up. We're just going to accept mail for the Armchair Dragoons.
Hey, at least if they got the address right, I don't care who it's addressed to if it shows up to the correct address. Unlike Gary with a blank address.
Yeah,
just saying that happened that one time.
In Gary,
and I was salty about that for like 3 weeks too. Yeah. So I got over it. It's fine, but
I remember it being mentioned on more than one live stream. So
it's been mentioned. I didn't really rant about it that much, but publicly, that is, I did rant in an email correspondence that came about. But yeah, actually, this is true. You have to have Crab Dragoons at the next Armchair Dragoons physical convention.
We shall see.
I am positive you can get frozen ones from GFS or Costco.
Yeah. We're going to be in a different facility this coming October. We're not going to be in the store. We pretty sure we got something nailed down. We're just trying to sort out the exact cost and the hours that we're going to be in the building. Mm-hmm. But it's still going to be close enough to the store that it's easy enough to make the pilgrimage over lunchtime.
Mm-hmm. So that works.
Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that gives folks the one over the world view of what you're looking at for the convention this year. It's 36, 37 total events, of which we're a little lighter on seminars and talk shows this year. I think just other folks are busy doing stuff. Like Mo has other plans this weekend.
Well, it happens. I'm actually shocked that Mo's got like evening activities like that he's responsible for. So I'm actually surprised that hasn't happened previously.
Yeah, well, usually we're able to work around it because it's sort of, all right, Mo, which day you call on a hockey game? You'll do one and Gary does the other. And I think somehow he got stuck with hockey games on both this year, or it may be hockey game on one and spousal activities on the other. So
either way, it still means you're not going to have a show. So for those who don't know, Mo is an announcer for a hockey team. Is it like minor league hockey?
It is. It's the Allen Americans. They're in suburban Dallas. Doesn't really narrow it down, right? Because the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is the size of Connecticut. But the Allen Americans are a minor league hockey team in the area. And it's funny because I was just on their website one time, just taking, because I didn't know anything about the team. I just kind of wanted to see, all right, what's going on with the Allen Americans. And they had an upcoming promotional night for Wizard Night, where they were going to be wearing these hockey jerseys that looked like they were designed for Hogwarts.
Okay. Do they have like
I made the
stars and
mistake
moons
of-
on them and stuff?
Yeah, well, scroll and scroll type,
Huh.
some scroll work on them, and some like calligraphy letters and such. I made the mistake of looking at that page while McKenna was in the area. So now we have an Allen Americans Wizard Knight hockey jersey here in the house that
Okay.
she has worn to school multiple times, and even to one of the Carolina Hurricanes games. She showed up in an Allen Americans hockey jersey to a Hurricanes.
There was trying to remember who this guy played for. Miroslav Shatan. You remember him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He played for
Devils.
Buffalo?
Maybe I remember him playing for the Devils as would be appropriate.
Yeah, I got a buddy who bought that jersey.
Everybody wanted the Satan jersey.
Obvious reasons. Yeah, I could see that. So, this is actually not a terrible idea, to be completely honest.
My wife and I each have a Hurricanes jersey that we wear to our games here, and mine's actually a Christmas present that's older than my son, because it's back from when Rod Brindamore was still playing and before he was the captain of the team. I always wanted a Brindamore jersey because, I mean, he played for the Canes, which was the only connection I had to any hockey team, really. But it was the coolest name in hockey. And so I got one as a Christmas present years and years and years ago. But my wife also has her Canes jersey. They're actually, the jerseys are at the game tonight. My son's fiance's parents, so our soon-to-be in-laws, borrowed them to wear to the Canes game tonight. So.
So you've got events running on Sunday too, as I recall, right?
We do.
It's an actual 3-day event.
Yeah,
with some early morning stuff for the European people who would not normally be available at this particular time slot.
Yep. We've got, so like all of the talk shows and seminar stuff are today and tomorrow. We don't have any of those running on Sunday, but we do have a variety of games running on Sunday. I think Robotech Reconstruction, I think, is the last of the games to start Sunday, and there's one at like 4:00 in the afternoon. So if folks want to hop into that, they're welcome to. So, but yeah, we don't have a closing happy hour this time around. So.
Now, folks, Brant and I talked about this previously, but I would like, what is the contact email address that folks should reach out to you at if they would like to volunteer to help with next year's Armchair Dragoons digital convention, which isn't happening unless there's some help materializes.
Yeah, it's Armchair Dragoons events at gmail.com.
There you go. Armchair Dragoons events at gmail.com. So folks, if you've got the capacity to help organize this thing, and it's not technically challenging, I don't think. You've got to wrangle a Discord server and get links to people and all that other stuff, but otherwise it's not terribly complicated. It's not complicated, but Brant does a lot. Let me put it that way.
Time consuming. And it's less that I need somebody to like take over and run the whole thing as it is that I need somebody to help recruiting the GMs and contacting the GMs and contacting the companies about, hey, do you have things you would like to show off here? Or do you have designers that have projects they're wanting to showcase? And then following up with the emails for the GMs. Hey, don't forget, here's the link to the Discord. Make sure your stuff is working. Make sure that, your people are checked in. Get the emails out to the attendees that, hey, don't forget to update to the latest versions of the software, whether it's Vassal or Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia or whatever it is the players are using, to update the help documentation each year, because something always changes in between Discord and Vassal and whatever else. We used to have like a little 1-page help document that I didn't get a chance to update this year, and I wasn't going to put the wrong thing in there. But just to go through and like update the screenshots for, hey, here's where you join the voice channel. Here's where you join the text channel. Here's how you find the information on the event, that kind of stuff. So those are the kinds of things that it's a lot of those sorts of tasks. Setting up the convention isn't that hard in tabletop.events that I would still do that, because that's tied to the Dragoons account that we use for a bunch of stuff. And again, setting up and configuring the Discord isn't that hard because we build from a template, and then tabletop events actually syncs to Discord. Like all of those channels that you see created in Discord are put there by the convention software.
That's cool. I didn't realize that it had that capability.
Yeah, it's very, look, man, there's a bunch of stuff. How much of it was a reaction to people going virtual for the pandemic, and how much of it was already there, I'm not really sure. But Tabletop.events does, despite their name being Tabletop.events, does a very good job of managing virtual events also. I've been really impressed by the capabilities they have.
I only have two issues with tabletop events. And one is, of course, when they're running Origins and they get the DDoS attack when they turn it on for the convention, which is unsurprising, but it is also unfortunate. And the other is, of course, that I find their website rather difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
But it is a good platform.
I don't know if this will make you feel better or not, but they're not using TTE for Origins this year.
I heard that probably from you.
Yeah,
I think that's a mistake, because now the tabletop events is like getting good at it. Get rid of these guys. Well, let's bring in somebody completely new that's never run so much as a thumb wrestling tournament.
I've never heard of Swoogo until Origins signed on with these guys.
Okay.
But I will tell you that I am very much looking forward to when Origins signs off with these guys, because they have no bulk event upload. We got 150 events.
Yeah, that's gonna, for you, it's gonna suck. For like Rogue Judges, it's gonna suck. For the Puffing Billy people, it's gonna suck. It's basically gonna suck for everybody that has multiple events. So
Rogue
that's
Flu.
it. Yeah. Oh no shit. How many events do they run? 300 maybe.
They typically run in the low 300s.
Yeah, that's insane. Plus the D&D and Pathfinder Society people and all those Shadowrun events. There's probably 60 Shadowrun events running at Origins in any given year. Same deal with Pathfinder. D&D's probably double that, if not more. Who knows? I haven't been paying attention to that for the last couple of years.
Yeah, the one that has a ton of events that can probably survive this the easiest, Catalyst always has a crap ton of Battletech events. Mm-hmm. Catalyst has people on payroll they can sit there to do the key entry.
Catalyst
has some actual. They have a couple of actual employees and people to whom they can give money to sit there and be button mashers for them. We do not.
Is Catalyst one of the publishers who's going to be taking a bath on the Diamond Distribution collapse?
I don't know.
Okay, because I thought they were, but I could be mixing up with somebody else.
Well, so for those that don't know, Diamond Comics has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Mm. However, there was some sort of deal, and I haven't dug into the details. I could probably contact Mike over at Board Game Wire and ping him for some info. Alliance Distributors, which was the subsidiary that handles the games, has some sort of external funding to keep them specifically afloat. Okay. So how much or how bad this is actually going to affect the game part of Diamond going into bankruptcy remains to be seen, because it looks like Alliance themselves were thrown a lifeline that doesn't seem to apply to the rest of the comics biz.
Okay.
That Diamond has. Now, I haven't dug into it enough to really know even if all of what I just said is completely accurate. But there is some sort of separate circumstance that applies to Alliance that seems to be mitigating the damage from Diamond Comics Chapter 11.
Yeah, I know Hasbro and I thought it was Catalyst were among their major creditors. So nobody's going to feel particularly bad about Hasbro taking a bath. They're going to survive losing that $1 million. That's the
they're going to make it all back on their new gambling initiatives.
Right, the D&D loot boxes.
Have you not seen the news that they've licensed D&D out to a gambling company to do like slot machines or something? I'm not really sure what.
I have not seen that news, but I am totally unsurprised.
Hasbro has actually licensed the D&D names and logos and trademarks and those things to a gambling company for the purpose of creating some D&D gambling games, whatever. So.
Right. So, as everybody knows, Hasbro is run by philanthropists. So, this is not especially surprising. The Token Industries or Middle-earth Enterprises or whatever it's called now, the Saul Zaentz company that owns the film and TV rights, that's behind the movies, the good movies and the bad movies and the bad TV show, actually did the same thing and got sued over it. There was, when I was at the Columbus casino, there was actually a Lord of the Rings slot machine of some kind. But there was a big lawsuit about that.
Yeah. I remember when the licensing happened. I didn't even remember the lawsuit afterwards about it all. So, yeah, Fidelis, I don't know if you remember, it's not just Axis and Allies that got licensed to Renegade. They have licensed Squad Leader from Hasbro.
And Diplomacy, and I think Acquire, and a couple other things, as I recall. And they have not said jack about Squad Leader that I've heard, other than it's coming sooner or later.
So I sat down with Jordan from Renegade at Gamma Expo in Las Vegas. So almost 2 years ago now. And the issue was, we're going to get the Squad Leader. We got some Axis and Allies stuff we want to get out first. And then we're going to get the Squad Leader, which would have put Squad Leader in early to mid 2024. When I saw him at Gamma Expo this past year, all the Squad Leader stuff had been kicked to the right, not indefinitely, but they're not trying to commit to any kinds of dates at all. And it was because the HeroScape license came available and they snagged that. And they knew they were going to make a crap ton of money on HeroScape, where Squad Leader was a lot more niche. And so the Axis and Allies stuff that they're doing is holding to the plan that Jordan explained to me back in 2023, which is a reprint plus a new A&A game each year. So last year, the new one was the North Africa game, and the reprint was Guadalcanal, although they'd had some other reprints also. This coming year, they're reprinting Bulge in May, and they're going to have a new Stalingrad one in August.
I did hear that. I am on their mailing list.
Yeah, I suspect the Stalingrad one is being timed for Gen Con, because that would be a smart thing to do. And Renegade
very sensible for
run
them.
by smart people.
Yeah,
but that's what they're looking for. So Achilles, the D&D craps thing would be funny about rolling the 2D20s, except that Modiphius actually has a role-playing system out there that is called the 2D20 system. And if D&D craps tried to come up with a 2D20 something or other, Modiphius would go after them legally. And quite frankly, Modiphius is one of the few companies out there that's big enough that Hasbro couldn't just laugh it off and throw a bunch of money at them to go away. Plus, Modiphius would do it in Crown Courts instead of here in the U.S. And so that would put Hasbro on the back foot, because they'd have to deal with, barristers and solicitors instead of lawyers.
Right. Yeah. They are UK based. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're seeing an increased visibility kind of all across analog gaming of European publishers here in the States, which I think is a good thing generally. I'd like to at least be aware of what folks are doing over there. Like the folks from Nuts Publishing are doing some very interesting things right now. Hexasim as well. Europa Simulazione's done some cool stuff that I picked up. Euro War Games, I got mine. It's under the pile of stuff. I haven't even, other than to leaf through it very briefly, I haven't really done anything with it yet. I still got Mark Herman's
the
book.
Intro chapter. So, I still don't have my Compass Games catalog, but I've got my Euro War Games book.
I literally threw a Compass Games catalog in the recycling today because they sent me 3 of them. So I should just have handed you one last time I saw you, I guess. I will do so at Origins. I will hand you last year's Compass Games catalog.
I'll see you at BGF.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah, which is not too far away. That's in April. So
last week, April, first week of May.
So you guys did that end of year survey too that we might also bring up. So that is what, the 3rd or 4th year you've done that?
This is only the 2nd year that we've done it. Actually.
Okay, it was so much work last year that it made it seem like it had been going on for longer.
Yeah, kind of. So hang on just a second. We'll get that window back up. I had to close that one in order to share the calendar piece that we were looking at there.
There we go.
So yeah, back at the end of 2023, we asked folks, hey, here's just a general survey. Look back on your past year in wargaming. Did you play more? Did you play less? Did you spend more? Did you spend less? Did you play with some new folks? What were some of the things you did and didn't like about your wargaming over the past year? And we had 250 odd participants in it. So, I mean,
it's not bad.
It's not bad. I would love to get up over 500 on these things eventually, but it wasn't bad. Out of 250 odd participants, we got approximately 273,480 complaints. But we're wargamers. We complain.
Right. They don't want to paste the BGG link in the fields. I understand, having dealt with that nonsense.
I get that.
I understand.
And we are working on a solution to that. One of the things we did do this year was we cut that back to where there were only 2 fields where you needed to paste a link in, and only one of them was required. So you, at most, you had to paste in 1 BGG link, and that was, what game did you play the most in 2024? It didn't have to be a 2024 release, just what'd you play the most, was the one that we asked. But yeah, I mean, we asked a bunch of different stuff. And so the one thing that we always ask folks is how long you've been wargaming. And of course, at least half the crowd has been wargaming for more than 40 years because we're just weird that way. But what is nice is that the pie slice of the 0 to 3 and the 3 to 10 years, those are getting bigger. So we are bringing more folks in, which is cool.
That is good.
Now, again, I want to be careful. And I put this in all of the articles and somebody still misunderstands it. These descriptors are not intended to be descriptors of the wargaming population as a whole. We're not trying to project this on everybody. These are descriptors of who replied to the survey. Right. So this is who we got that replied to us. But that's what we got. And then where'd you find out about it? Because we always ask. BGG is still one of the primary places to get this information out.
There was not an option that said Brant won't stop calling me. So
you just file that under Armchair Dragoons up there at the top.
Yeah, okay. Fair.
But yeah, we did try and cut back on the requirement to put BGG links in there, although we are working on some potential solutions to that. But for what folks actually played this past year, so the number of different titles that folks played were about the same by and large. But we did have some folks played a whole lot more and some folks played more, but not a lot. So people changed, people did have an increase in titles and less of the population went down, right? So they played about the same or more different titles. In terms of total hours, most folks were about the same, but again, almost 2/3 of the survey played about the same or more. So that was good. So that was nice too.
There's another suggestion for you, Brant. Why don't you do a good Operation Dragoon game?
How much time do you think I have?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? You don't have any time. You've just used it all.
Yeah. Sure. Actually,
in your copious free time.
Yeah, there was an Operation Dragoon game in one of the early Battles magazines that wasn't a half bad game. It look, there's only so much you can do because it was largely a sideshow, but it wasn't a bad game. It was just small because it was in a magazine with like 2 other games. So yes, we need Operation Rangoon is what we need there. For purchases of games, again, about the same is the large answer there. But you can see that almost 2/3 of the pie was about the same or more. So only about 1/3 of the pie, bought fewer games, spent less on games compared to the previous year. And then total number of opponents was about the same. And this one I would have expected to stay around the same. If you're playing about the same number of titles and hours, you're probably going to have about the same number of opponents. And then the last one was the total number of new opponents. Again, the number went to if you take out the about the sames, more outweighed fewer. So that was good. So a lot of folks, the habits were consistent from previous year to this year, but where they did change, they trended up, not down. So I think that's overall a good thing. One thing that I did find interesting is, so each question had about the same as the largest response in all 5 of those questions. But we only had 18 of the 250 replied about the same for all 5 of those questions. So while about the same was the most common answer for them all, everybody had some variations somewhere. So that was kind of good.
That's Will. I'm more of a cuirassiers guy personally. So
yeah. For most common type folks play, I don't know how big that's shown up on people's screens, but the most common type of war game people play is traditional hex encounter was almost half. And then traditional minis was a pretty large number as well. The procedural solo games, there was a decent number of them down there.
That's not surprising, actually.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of those. A lot of them are very engaging, I think. And a lot of people like to play their game solitaire. So...
Yeah. Including my own worst enemy who just popped into the chat. Folks are typically playing at home or online using tools like we use here at the digital convention with Vassal and TTS. And I suspect most folks are playing Vassal or TTS at home. So, yeah.
I would assume so. You should next year you should put in the survey the question of, do you clip your counters or are your counters uncircumcised like a savage?
Free range counters.
Yes.
We did, just for comparison's sake, compare where you're playing against your most common type. And you know, nothing really jumped out as, oh, hey, these kinds of games are being played more often somewhere else, except for the traditional minis, right? There's the traditional minis tend to be played at friends' houses and local clubs a little more commonly than you would expect compared to the distribution of the other games. So
I don't think I find that terribly surprising. However, what is a non-traditional minis war game? Exactly.
Well, so we did that to draw the distinction between the big box map and minis games down here. So something like the old Battlemaster series from Milton Bradley.
Or War of the Ring.
War of the Ring from Ares Games. Yeah, would be a map and minis game as opposed to and the shorthand here in the chart is different than what showed up on the survey itself, where traditional minis, it specified like building your own terrain sort of thing.
Okay.
So that was the difference is, you know, it's not an all-inclusive box. You're buying separate minis. You're building specific terrain for whatever. The rules are their own separate book instead of being like an all-inclusive box. Mm-hmm. Memoir 44 would probably count as a map and minis game for most people. Sure. So, you know, any of the board games that have the minis in them instead of the blocks. But War of the Ring, Rune Wars, that sort of stuff.
Right. I have no knowledge of Rune Wars at all. I did buy War of the Ring, the latest edition from Ares. I got a used copy, from a lightly used copy. It's in decent shape from somebody. I'd like to play it. I've seen the old deluxe collector, whatever it was that came in the wooden crate that was the size of your hatchback's hatchback.
Yeah.
So I remember that.
They've got another anniversary deluxe one coming up that's on pre-order now, coming this year, that includes a whole bunch of painted minis and again, wooden box, but like leather covers on the books and all kinds of other upgrades.
I got the regular one, which I am completely pleased with. That'd be fine. I'll buy, if I'm going to spend more money on it, I'll get the expansions. There's a fancy, I saw Dune Imperium. There's like a fancy big box version of Dune Imperium. And I'm like, is this like a new edition already? The thing just came out not that long ago. And it's not. It's just like it's like the deluxe version with the minis or something like that.
Yeah, I think the sandworms actually move around the table themselves or something ridiculous.
Well, there's like a sandworm model instead of a counter, I guess. I don't know.
No, the original box had models in there. I was just joking about the sandworms being alive and actually like moving around the map.
Okay. Well, they couldn't find sandworms. They're very difficult to source, so they just put cobras in the box. So open with care.
Or earthworms, you know, for the less
for the budget version. That's the non-collectible version.
Molotov Cocktail says there are rules changes in that deluxe edition.
Okay, well, I'm not buying it. I've got the original one and I bought the digital version, which is the one I've played, and it's okay. It actually reminds me a lot of Lords of Waterdeep, which I also like a lot.
Yeah. For how long you've been playing versus what are some of the most common types of war games you play? Again, the 40-year-olds are the large crowd there. What's nice is the traditional minis tend to spread pretty evenly across the age groups, which was kind of cool to see.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and the procedural solo games spread pretty evenly across all the different age groups. So
interesting. That is quite interesting. And even the
don't
coin
know
/ ICS series games. What is ICS exactly?
the irregular conflict
Okay,
series.
so the GMT stuff, like the Robin Hood and the
Robin Hood and
Fort
Viana
Sumter and that kind of
Jagara.
stuff.
Yeah, I'm
That's
mispronouncing Viana Jagara, but it's been a running gag.
Vijayanagara. There you go. That's not a great pronunciation, but I'm from Ohio, so that's what you're getting.
There was a running gag on the Solo Wargaming podcast that Mike and I did with Liz after the Solo Wargame survey over the summer, that I pronounced it wrong every time, but a different wrong way every time.
That's fantastic.
So
that's fantastic. This is why I don't play minis, because I don't want to take the time to deal with the minis.
Yeah, the arts and crafts are beyond what I don't mind sitting down and playing with someone else's minis on occasion. But the arts and crafts are way more than I want to deal with. For how long is your normal game session? 2 to 4 hours was the runaway leader here. And then under 2 hours and 4 to 6 hours were the next two. So, Gary, you guys playing your all-day marathon 8-hour sessions. Not a lot of people doing that.
Well, that's not our normal weekly game, though, right? That's our convention game, in which case it's more like 14 hours. But our regular space is probably about 2 hours. That's our regular weekly thing. Which I haven't made it to in like a month.
For how long does it take to complete one of the most commonly played games?
Folks, you know what I voted for here.
Mm-hmm. 2 to 4 hours was still the large one, but there's a large chunk of folks that are over 20 hours.
Mm-hmm. If you had over 200 hours, I might have selected that, actually. Although I don't know that that's necessarily the average. I think the average is more like 100 hours. But or 50 to 100 hours. Let me put it that way. Depends on the game.
But we were curious for game sessions and most commonly played games, how long those were.
Mm-hmm.
And then we asked about how long your game session is versus where you're playing. And interesting, the 8+ game session folks were spread around. They weren't all at the same place. But there was a decent spread in there. So that wasn't too bad. And then
there are a fair number of clubs that have the capacity to do big games, though, right? The Seattle Wargamers, for example, the First Minnesota up in, oddly enough, Minnesota, and Metropolitan Wargamers in New York City. They all, I'm aware, this off the top of my head, that they have like club space and they could keep stuff set up for a long period of time and all that jazz.
Well, and those sorts of clubs are actually a lot more common in Europe as well, because they've got a social history of those kinds of clubs, not just for game playing, but those kinds of social clubs for all sorts of things are a lot more common in Europe. So it's not unusual to have the club who's renting the room up over the shop somewhere that leaves stuff set up for an extended period of time, which is why you get a lot of those minis dudes playing in clubs. So, normal game session length versus most common type of war game. Something I found interesting. There's this one dude out here who his normal game session is 8+ hours playing solo procedural games.
I guess he's got ample free time.
I'm guessing so.
So good for that individual. I am delighted for them.
Yeah.
I'll do it at a convention, but I mean, ordinarily that's not something I would do here at home, or unless I had people over, in which case we might go for 4 to 6 hours.
For how long something takes to complete, so not an individual session, but to complete the game versus most common type of war game. I really think these card-assisted war games that are not necessarily an ops event, those are the two guys that responded that are playing Mr. President.
Okay. Or Axis Empires. I could think of examples that would take more than 20 hours to play.
Yeah, I'm just making a bad joke, but yeah, I'm fairly sure those guys fit into that bucket.
Yeah. It's not as though I told all the OCS guys to go vote in the survey or anything.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because we asked, so 110 different respondents reported they went to at least one convention last year. which was a fair number of them. These are the conventions that reported at least 4 attendees for the survey response. The reason I think SD HistCon was the highest on this list is that this got shared in the SD HistCon Discord server.
Okay.
So I think that poisoned the well a little bit there.
Well, no, I wouldn't put it that way, but it did introduce a bit of sampling bias that you didn't otherwise account for.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm careful to point out that this is describing the respondents to the survey, not the wargaming population as a whole. So, because there's no way.
I mean, people should understand. People should understand the nature of surveys and statistics anyway, right? Every survey's got a bias built in somewhere, right? How big is it? You don't know, right? Maybe it's small, maybe it's huge. Who knows? So, these are conversation starters rather than science. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Look, when I was at Ohio State, one of the advisors on my PhD committee was the guy who ran the Center for Survey Research at Ohio
I'm sorry,
State.
let me interrupt you to just mention that the Ohio State Buckeyes will be playing for the national championship on this weekend. So I'm just going to say that. Please continue.
And have somehow managed to make Notre Dame the likable team in that matchup. So,
well, yeah, maybe it's possible actually. So there's that. I'm as shocked as anybody. But anyway, please continue.
Just anyhow, these are the conventions that had, multiple attendees there. I agree with you that people should understand lots of things about surveys and survey statistics. But this is, not necessarily. These are all
I've never heard of some of those events, I got to tell you.
Yeah. These are all the ones that were mentioned at least once in there somewhere, which I think is really I think it's
There's
cool
a dude in there that responded to the survey that went to like 11 ASL events in 2024.
Yeah. Well, but also, like Lobster Trap. What the hell is the Lobster Trap convention? I really need to find out more about this.
It must be in Maine. I can only assume that it is in Maine.
I really hope so, and that it's not in, Wyoming, because that would be weird.
That would be strange.
We did ask folks what's the primary factor for the conventions they attend, and it's proximity, and then friends are the two big ones there. Is it close to me, and are people I know going?
Yeah, so there's a kind of an issue with this framing, though, if you think about it, because proximity has a huge impact on cost, right? If I have to fly there, that's automatically another couple $100 at least that I wouldn't otherwise have to spend. I can get to Columbus for $20 in gas. Or $10 in the new car, but I can't. It cost me like $400 to go to San Diego, for example. Yeah.
Well, and that's why. What's your convention attendance budget look like, not counting your shopping?
Brand, I demand that you keep my convention attendance budget strictly confidential. Don't tell anybody.
I'm not telling anybody which one of those bars you're in. Right.
And you can't say it on the air because my wife might be watching.
But over 500 was the large number in there, and I really think for a lot of folks that's hotel costs. I mean, it just costs money to an hotel. But then for the shopping budget, surprisingly, the majority of folks come in under 100, and over half the respondents come in under 200.
It occurs to me that I used to do that. I used to go to a convention and only blow like $100 or maybe $200 on loot. Those days are over, folks. I don't know what to tell you. We come home nowadays with substantially more loot. It was actually refreshing to come home from SD HistCon with zero loot.
So Gary has seen the last couple of Origins, and Mike is in the chat. He has been at the last couple of Origins as well. And both of them will attest to the fact that Brant's convention budget the past 2 years has substantially skyrocketed, while the number of games Brant brings home has gone steadily down. The explanation in the middle of those two things is that Brant's daughter has been at both of the last two conventions.
I was going to say, but McKenna's eating some of the con budget nowadays.
Which means we have left with a custom-made Alice in Wonderland corset dress and a custom-made lightsaber, among many other trinkets.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't have my dragon chair from Carolina Game Tables, but I've got a whole lot of crap in my daughter's closet right now that has come back from Origin that cost a car payment or more.
I would just like to point out that I mentioned at the start of the show that if I was refilling this multiple times, or really even once, you know what kind of day it's been for me over here at work, and I've now done 2 refills, but I am adding water, so there's that. Got to stay hydrated, folks. Put water in your whiskey. I love game auctions too, actually. So to the extent that I am knowledgeable about games, and people overstate this all the time, I am less knowledgeable than some people seem to have assumed. A lot of my knowledge came from hanging out at the Origins auction for years, right? For like 15 years, I was a regular at that auction. And just the people who were conducting the auction were old-time game people, like Frank Metzner, and Jim Ward was the auctioneer sometimes at Gen Con, and a variety of hobby luminaries were, and they would tell you stories about what they were auctioning off at that exact moment.
Our recently departed Alan Emmerich was a frequent auctioneer at
he was a fixture at CSW. Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's the Bruce Reif used to always do the ones for Buckeye Game Fest.
Yeah, Bruce is good at it too.
Yeah. DJ
Bruce, by the way, is almost unrecognizable now. By the way.
Oh, really?
If you haven't run into him, I ran into him at WBC. He's almost unrecognizable now.
I haven't seen him in a couple of years. Have I told you the Bruce Reif on TV story before? I don't know if I have.
Go ahead. Maybe not everybody has heard it.
Years ago, so Bruce back in the day was a very jolly, merry fellow, and like many of us wargamers, more well-rounded than squared away. We'll say it that way. And one of the local TV affiliates in Columbus did a live morning show broadcast from Cabs. They did it was the local Fox affiliate that did the entire morning show. Like they're doing the news hits and they're interviewing the person selling the cool space age blanket, and they've got the adopt a pet stuff. But every one of the segments they would, and now we're going live back to the Columbus Area Board Game Society. We got this stuff going on. And so they're just shooting a room full of cabbies, which they got, I don't know, 80 odd cabbies to show up at 6 a.m. to do a live show for 3 hours.
I'm not really surprised. I've been to meetings where there were like 275 people. I'm not talking Origins. I'm talking meeting that they have like every week.
Yeah, that's the folks that haven't ever hung around cabs don't truly appreciate the scale of cabs. And that is like, you know, a good local convention pulls in 200, 250 people or so. And for cabs, that's Friday night. Like that's every other Friday. That's just a regular meeting for those guys. So there were 60 to 80 odd cabbies, you know, at 6:30 in the morning, sitting there just playing random game. And the news anchors walked around to ask them questions about the games and what's going on and whatever. And he did one segment on war game stuff. So these talk about, you know, historical battles and whatever. And they had a couple of the cabbies in the background holding up a couple of the different game boxes. And Bruce, right in front of his stomach, is holding up the Battle of the Bulge box.
Oh my! I refuse to believe that was
intentional.
I refuse to believe that was accidental. Did they talk to the OCS guys? Because I think back when this happened, which I heard that this had happened, but I wasn't involved at the time. But this would have been when Jim Reisner and the OCS guys had a running OCS game that was up at all times.
I was still
the late Jim Reisner, by the way. Jim was a good guy. I did not interact with him too much before he passed.
Yeah, the regular crew at the time that I was in Columbus was Jim, Dave, and Angela was still in town and playing with them pretty regularly. Mm-hmm. And then there was one other person, I don't remember who the fifth one is, that used to jump in there. You probably know them all, but they were all in there. And so that was their regular OCS group. They probably sort of, you know, scanned past the OCS guys. Mm-hmm. You're right. It probably wasn't an accident with Bruce holding that, but it was still fun.
No. Bruce is sharper than that. I'd be shocked if Bruce didn't know exactly what he was doing in that particular. Fidelis, I can tell you, I can't give you a number, but I can tell you that it was less popular because they actually hired what's his name to be a spokesman for a while. Lagvulen did, that is, and to be fair, good choice on Ron's part. I approve.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. All right, I've got part 2 of the stats if you want to take a look at some
let's
of
pull them
those.
up. I thought we were done with stats, but here we go.
Yeah, so your most played game from this past year, ASL was the big winner, which isn't a big surprise. The ones on the left, on that left column, all showed up at least 3 times. The ones in the right column all showed up twice. Overall, we had 143 different games listed. They're all in 143 different titles. You can see the full list in our forums. I wasn't tying up screen real estate to list all the singles, but there's a bunch of them. But it's not a ton of things that are really off the wall. The ones you would expect are up there. If you roll the starter kit in with ASL, then it goes from 12 to 16. But it's a bunch of the usual hits, right? So
yeah, pretty much. I played a couple of these in 2024, actually. I think I voted for Great Campaigns in the American Civil War because I think that was my most hours clocked over the year. But because our regular weekly group kind of rotated between things, and we played GCACW for like 8 days straight. So,
oh wow, okay,
yeah, for 12 plus hours a day.
I can see Jeff asking in the chat about which states had the most responders. We didn't ask where folks were from, so I couldn't tell you that one.
That's a good question to ask, though. Get some demographic information.
Well, but the challenge is we're really wanting to focus on sort of the game playing questions, and I'm not going to have this thing go over 20 questions because there's no way people are going to sit there for that long of a something for what's supposed to be a more casual survey. So I'm trying to keep it 15 to 17 at the most, and I can get away with doubling up a couple of things here and there with you'll see here in a second with some questions about whether some things went up or down. But there's a limit to how many questions I want to throw in there. And I'm trying to keep that down to a manageable size and not too many screens people have to page through.
Yeah, the combat people respondees all played together on January 3rd. That's what that is.
Well, so this is for your favorite game released in 2024. So you didn't have to reply to this one. This was another one we wanted a BGG link pasted in, but it was an optional item so people could skip this. Burning Banners, Rebel Fury, Jester Robin Hood, and I Napoleon were all up there at the top of this list. And again, these were the ones that were the most talked about in 2024 also. Something I did find interesting is a little further down. These guys included Littoral Commander of the Baltic, which isn't actually commercially released yet. We still gave folks credit for it, though, because there were some folks in the professional military space that were responding to this survey, and there were a lot of playtest sessions of LC Baltic that were out there.
Yeah.
So some of those people,
Sebastian is very active with his playtesting, as far as I can tell.
But people may not realize that the people responding to this may not realize that Baltic hadn't shipped yet. So.
I've never heard of a couple of these. Operation Bullet Bank, I've never heard of that. Barrett Stechko 1651, never heard of that.
Those are both from Snafu over in the UK.
Okay.
Stechko came out early in the year. Bullet Bank just came out late November, early December.
That Snafu was in Spain. Am I wrong?
I think they are. I just said
maybe Spain or Portugal. I thought I could be nuts too, so don't take my word for it.
Well, no, nuts is in France.
It's hard to keep. Did I say nuts?
You said I could be nuts.
Oh no, nuts is in France. Because I've spoken to Florent and I know he is French. But I thought Snafu was in Spain. But like I said, I could be misremembering that or mixing them up with somebody else.
Will is chiming in that yes, they are in Spain, and he would know because he's buying all kinds of stuff.
I think he's in Portugal, so I would assume that our Iberian viewers will be fully informed as to what Snafu has been up to, which includes a more aggressive publishing schedule. So that's awesome.
Bolo Bank just came out toward the end of the year, and it is an operation. It's a solo game. It's an operation in the Balkan Wars in the mid-90s, where you are trying to hold off the Serbs. And so there's some management, not just of your resources, but also the rules of engagement during the conflict.
That's potentially interesting.
Rocky covered it for us over at the Dragoon site, so you got to page back a couple of pages to find it, or just go to the archives and search for it, but it's there. And again, you know, as before, we had over 52 different games mentioned a single time each. So if you want to see that full list, go hit our forums. The link is there. You can go see it.
Armchairdragoons.com, folks.
Yeah. Now, something we didn't ask about designers, but because we had the BGG links, we've got one of the Dragoons has helped us out with pulling some data back out of the BGG database, and he pulled the designers for all of those games also. So even though we didn't ask people about designers, we were able to say, hey, based on the games you told us you played, who were the most popular designers that we saw? And Borg is at the top of the list, which is what you'd expect given how many of the Commands and Colors series games got played.
Yeah.
So even though Napoleonics and Ancients and Memoir 44 were all less than Advanced Squad Leader, Borg jumps to the top once you aggregate all those together as the designer. That
Borg has assimilated everyone else, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, there you go. And so what's
and I assume the Don Greenwood entries are mostly coming from ASL.
Probably, yes.
And I'm gratified to see Dean's name high on the list as well.
Yes. So what's on and Herman, it's probably 6 separate games because it's Herman.
Yeah.
And probably 6 separate publishers.
I think Herman released 6 games in 2024, actually.
That was probably just May of 2024.
Possibly. Herman is a machine, folks.
Yeah. So what you're seeing on the left is those were the designers that showed up in the most played games list. And the ones on the right were the favorite of 2024 list, which is why Christopher Muller's at the top of that because of the banners.
Which looks pretty I don't have it, but it looks good.
It looks freaking awesome. So
and Fred, I assume, is based on the strength of Just of Robin Hood, which has had a very strong positive response from a lot of people.
So Fred's only got one other game that I know of that's been released, and that was Red Flag Over Paris a couple of years ago. So that wouldn't have been relevant for that column on the right.
Right. I have Red Flag. I don't have Robin Hood. Yeah.
I'm the other way around. I have Just a Robin Hood. And we played it at the last War Game Day here at Gamers Armory. So fun game. It took us a little bit of time to fully grok the card part of it, but once we did, it was good. We were cool.
I have one Robin Hood game, and here it is. In the shrink wrap, no less. These were not great, I gotta tell you.
I'm not going across the room to grab mine, but I've got the old Avalon Hill Gamette Robin Hood game.
I would consider playing that if like somebody brought it over or something, or just the Robin Hood for that matter. I didn't need to pick it up for myself.
Yeah. The old Avalon Hill one's a good game. We asked folks who your favorite publisher was. These were all the ones that got reported at least twice.
Right.
But that's what you got over there on the left. And then on the right, these are all.
This looks like the wall in the next room behind me, actually. I don't have anything from Histo Game, actually. I have something. I don't have anything from Take Aim either. I have a fair amount, or Two Fat Lardies who do miniature stuff.
Yep.
And I think I only have one Osprey game, but I've got quite a bit of stuff from everybody else on that list.
Yeah, so the left side are all the ones that were mentioned more than once, and on the right side, those are all the ones that got a single mention.
I only know what some of those things even are because I have occasionally spoken to Jim Orzarski.
Fair enough. We did ask folks what's the first thing to catch your interest, and the topic or battle or campaign was the overwhelming piece there. But
that's where I voted.
Yeah. For some folks, it's the designer. Like, I don't care who the designer is. Give me the game. Some folks are suckers for flashy graphics. But
flashy graphics are, well, not flashy graphics, but good graphics are really nice. Good graphics can enhance the experience.
Yeah. After the topic or battle or campaign, the next one was part of a series. And
Yeah,
And
no, I
I can
sympathize with
totally
that.
see that being a whole bunch of dudes that are buying ASL because they're ASL complete
ASL,
instead of
OCS, Library Napoleonic. I mean, I'm a series wargamer type of guy, so I've got a lot of series that I follow and buy more or less based on nothing other than that it's the newest PCS or OCS or TCS or whatever it is.
This is the one that Gary will love. We asked folks whether or not awards had any bearing on their purchase decisions. And the overwhelming majority is no real impact. But number 2 was games that win awards, I will go out of my way to learn more about, even if I choose not to purchase.
I got to tell you, I voted no real impact.
Yeah.
So, because I don't think it does. I mean, if a game won an award, that's great. But I don't let that necessarily guide my choices. Other than that, insofar as it might reflect a general positive opinion about a specific game.
Yeah. Yeah. We person that voted that games that win awards are I go out of my way to avoid. Oh, so we did get one vote on that one.
I think I might know. I think I might know that individual. Actually, I hate everything.
We did ask about crowdfunding stuff, and so there were 5 different kinds of crowdfunding that we asked about. Did you do any pre-order, publisher pre-order P500, or how many of them did you do? None was the winner there, but I mean, almost half the folks had between 1 and 5 that were on publisher or P500 pre-order somehow. Kickstarter, none was the big number, but 1 to 2 was almost as big. So I mean, there are folks still kickstarting stuff out there for games.
Yeah, and war games are not traditional war games are not strongly represented on Kickstarter or other crowdfunding platforms that are off the publisher's own pre-order system. Yeah. But there are some, right? Even I crowdfunded on Kickstarter a war game in 2024, The Last Gamble. I got mine through the Kickstarter.
Yep. Store pre-order, none was the runaway winner for that, and that's not a huge surprise.
No.
Given how few war games are really solicited through store pre-orders much. Gamers Armory actually does them, but that's not, they're not the norm. We know that. That said, I've put a couple of them on
clarity. They're not the norm because they do pre-orders. They're not the norm because they carry like a lot of war games, which most game stores do not do. There are a good number of exceptions, but most do not.
Backer kit, almost nobody there, which isn't a surprise because very few wargamers know that very few gamers of any kind know that backer kit actually does their own pre-orders, not just fulfillment for other pre-order systems.
They have gotten into that. Yeah. I think I bought 2 games through backer kit in 2024 and neither of them were war games.
Yeah. Game Found, it's still mostly none, but a few more war game folks showing up here, in part because there's a couple of specific war game publishers that are only using Game Found.
Yeah, Lock and Load is one of them, although I don't believe they had anything in 2024 for obvious reasons.
No, but DVG does, and the Form Square games are all on Game Found.
Which a company name I can appreciate.
Yes, so there's a handful of folks doing them through Game Found there. So again, for war gamers, the publisher pre-order P500 is still kind of the winner.
I probably get, not place the orders, but I probably get half a dozen games through GMT's P500 a year, something like that, plus or minus say 2 or 3.
Yeah, Paul, you're right. TTRPGs are big on backer kit. That's the one that backer kit leaned into, trying to pull people away from Kickstarter, and backer kit's clientele went way up once Kickstarter.
I was wrong. I did get the iLoud game from Sound of Drums through backer kit. Absolutely right. Thank you, Meandering Mike, for mentioning that.
Yeah, Game Found.
That's right.
Yeah. Where backer kit got an increase in clients was when Kickstarter made some weirdly nebulous announcement about they're going to start using blockchain technology as a part of their process, as something other. And first of all, it was clear from the press release that Kickstarter doesn't even really know what they're doing with blockchain technology. But the vast majority of people getting upset about it had no idea what Kickstarter was actually doing with blockchain technology. They just had heard somewhere blockchain is bad, therefore we must leave. And I don't know enough about the blockchain stuff as a whole, much less what Kickstarter is doing with it one way or the other to really make an evaluation on it. I just saw lots of people running away from a buzzword, but BackerKit was saying, hey, we'll take you. Come on over.
My understanding of blockchain is not really like a 10,000 foot view of blockchain. It's more like a geosynchronous orbit view of blockchain. I have the vaguest idea what it is. That's it. And the Kickstarter's announcement made zero sense to me either. But it doesn't appear to have actually done anything either. So there's that.
And I am probably in a parallel orbit up there with you. And I will also, I want to say, Gary, I know it's your show, but I'm going to make the plea here. Nobody try to explain it in the comments. Just don't. You've only got like 200 characters to work with anyway, but just no.
That's fair. Yep. Don't bother. I don't care. And the general audience here will not either. If you'd like to give us factoids about anything else we mentioned, by all means, go nuts.
Yeah. Now, the last bit of the research that we're going to be releasing, those two articles were the previous 2 Fridays. The third one would have been this Friday, but we got the AC/DC going on. So it's next Friday we will release the last one. And that's going to be the open text responses where people were telling us about the what they thought the biggest story of the year for 2024 was. And so we've got probably about 8 or 10 different common threads that we identified across the responses there. And this year we've got a couple of other content creators that are going to jump in and give us some of their thoughts on those responses.
Well, since you're on the air with me right now, I'll tell you what my personal opinion is on this. Dean Essig. Did we lose Brant?
And Dean was the... No, I'm here. Did you lose me?
Okay, good. You got occasional hitch. Your voice usually doesn't go out, so who cares?
Sorry. Nobody wants to see me anyway.
Well, that's true. I could just like blank your screen out and just play the audio. But that would apply to me too, to be fair.
Dean was the most mentioned topic for the biggest story of 2024. But then wargamers that passed away. In aggregate, not just Dean, but Mark Ruggiero, Bobby Factor. And the other one, people, because it happened right after the new year, Peter Perla passed away in 2024 also.
That's true,
It feels like it was 9 years ago, but it was in...
It does actually feel like it was a long time ago, but you're right, it was super early in 2024.
It was about this time. It was
I am pleased to note that one of the people who contributed introductions to Mark Herman's book, one of them was Peter Perla. Yeah. So I was happy to see that. The other, of course, is Jim Dunnigan, who is still with us.
Yes.
Thankfully.
And if you've seen Jim in action lately at all, the dude is still a blur of energy. So he's showing no signs of slowing down.
Fabulous. I am delighted to hear that. Yeah. So NAC War Games. I have a couple of things from NAC War Games, actually, and I like the stuff that I have. Not interested in everything that they've done, but I've got a couple of their things.
Yeah, so NAC used GameFound for the other side of the hill, but they had at least 2 games, the King of the North game and the there was another one. They had 2 that came out this past year that never went to pre-order. They just showed up on their website one day and they're like, hey, we're here.
Hey, not everybody needs to do pre-orders all the time. Sometimes, Ambient MMP doesn't really pre-order for everything. If they have a new ASL product, sometimes it's like, fuck it, put it on the website. We're good. Yeah. It'll be fine. And they're right. So,
yeah, well, not just that, but they're going to put it on the website at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. That's when they'll release it.
Of course. But Brant, that's just to aggravate you.
Well, you saw this past week, right? They made the announcement that Forgotten Battles is now shipping at like 7:45 on Tuesday night.
Mhm.
Like, these bastards, they're doing it on purpose at this point.
Big shout out to Brian. Thanks, Brian, for responding appropriately to my email instructions to make Brant as angry as possible.
Well, and of course, I end up taking it out on Peter because he's the guy that's putting the announcements out.
Yeah, because he's the guy that's doing the PR work.
Yeah. It's Peter that gets all the flack, even though he's not making
this totally hit its number. I'm not sure what this means. It did hit the number. I'm not sure if there's some kind of display problem on the website. That is possible, and that has happened before. But Forgotten Battles absolutely did hit its number.
Yeah.
So, I mean, shit, it hit its order. I got 3 copies of it. I did my share. So
Gary is why it hit its order.
To be fair.
Yeah. But yeah, so look, it's a fun thing to do, to have the snapshot, to take a look back over the previous year. We're going to continue to refine it and tweak it from year to year. We made some changes this year based on feedback we got last year. And of course, people bitched about the things that we had changed.
Well, we're wargamers. We are excellent at complaining.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't even put it that way. We are gamers. We are excellent at complaining.
Somebody brought up, after, once we were publishing some of the results, we were asked whether or not anybody had shared this thing on Reddit and in the War Games community there. I did not. Like, there were 1 or 2 times
r/Hex Encounter, folks, is the best one I've found.
Yeah. There were a couple of times where I tried to share a couple of things on Reddit here or there, and I got yelled at for, basically just coming in and dropping some promotional stuff and disappearing. Well, yeah, I don't live my life on Reddit, so I'm not always that you're only going to get me drop in when I have something to share that is of interest to the audience, and then I'm leaving because I've got more shit going on in my life than hanging out on Reddit all day. So,
Iggy, there's a link in the video description. So yeah, it would be hilarious if the pre-order number on the website was counting down as they ship the orders. I think that would be funny.
That would be a riot.
That would be funny. Nobody knows what's happening on the back end here, folks. There's a severe database. There's a database leak somewhere.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny. So if you go, Iggy, if you go to the Armchair Dragoons website, that top article is that the ACDC starts today, and the registration link is right in there that gets you to the tabletop.events site. Mm-hmm. In years past, I would do one of the tiny URL shorteners for the ACDCs, but then I went back and actually looked at the number of redirects, and it was like 9. So I was like, you could do tiny URL / something, and it would be easy to remember, but nobody was using it. So I just quit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely not. I don't know what it's showing right now, but it's definitely not accurate. That hit its number fairly quickly. Let me put it that way. Within about 60 days, if not a little faster.
Yeah.
And I do kind of pay attention to that. So,
although I do agree with what you said, that it would be funny if it was counting down as.
I think it was. You've worked with databases before, as have I. So I just think that would be hilarious from a technical standpoint if that was what was going on. And you know what? Based on this data point, which I have done no research on at all, that is not impossible.
Yeah, I could see that. So yeah, there's look, all kinds of stuff going on with the convention this weekend, and I hope folks have a chance to check some out and have a good time. I do have one other thing that we need to do while we're here, and that is we actually have a giveaway for the for convention attendees here.
Awesome.
I know.
Awesome. I will have a giveaway at some point in the not too distant future as well. How about that?
Yeah, I'm pulling up the email details just to make sure I don't screw something up. Now, I will say this is, again, way too fucking early in the morning o'clock in Europe, so I'm not counting on anybody in Europe being on here, but Ethan, who is the publisher of Forward Defense 85, so that's the solo tank sort of States of Siege-ish, right? You're a company commander in Europe in 85 with your tank company defending against the Red Horde. Rocky wrote about this over on his website, not on our site. He wrote about it on his. but Ethan offered a copy of For Defense 85 as a door prize or giveaway for us here with the show.
Big
And
shout out to Ethan. Thank you, Ethan. John Madison, Forgotten Battles. It is currently shipping, so you should be getting it anytime.
Yeah, and I didn't want to pull attention away from the guests you're going to have tomorrow night on the Chit Show, so I figured we'd do this here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how you want to manage your giveaway stuff. I know I'm springing this on you, so you don't like have everything.
No, Brad, it is okay. As a matter of fact, I'll have to pull up the link because you didn't, in fact, warn me about this. But we have, hold on a second. Let me do it correctly. We have this official StreamYard giveaway tool.
And the link, nope, that's not right. Got to take the parentheses off the end of it. So the second link that I just sent you backstage on StreamYard, if you want to share that for everybody else to see the game we're talking about, that is there for you. But yeah.
Very good. Forward defense. Let me pull this over as well. Hold on a second.
Yeah. So, Brian, you are correct. We should all hashtag play like Mark. Absolutely something.
Yes, absolutely. Mark was in. Well, I didn't plan on this being an inspirational thing, but Mark was as a wargamer, as somebody who lived in the wargaming community. Mark inspired a lot of people, and that's one of the things that I would like to see Mark Ruggiero remembered for. Is the fact that he was just such a positive force in the community in terms of personal relationships with friggin' everybody, and his relentlessly positive attitude, even literally in the face of friggin' death.
Yeah.
So I think we could all take a lesson from Mr. Ruggiero. So, in fact, let's make that the hashtag.
You can't use Ruggiero as the thing they have to. Nobody could spell it correctly.
Yeah, well, that's why it's going to be Game Like Mark.
There you go.
So hashtag Game Like Mark in the chat, folks, and we will roll the dice here in a couple of minutes.
So, John,
for a copy of the brand new Forward Defense 1985 Company Command in World War III, designed by Ethan Redrup and produced by Strategist's Den Games.
Yeah. John Madison was asking in the chat about Mark. Was he sick or was his passing kind of sudden? He had been fighting.
No, it was
for several years.
Yeah. Mark was extremely public about his battle with cancer, and to be honest, given his his prognosis, Mark did really well. Literally was playing war games and pushing counters around until a couple of days before he passed.
Yeah. And I think he beat the original doctor's prognosis by.
Oh yeah, by 2 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Was it that long?
Something like that.
I didn't remember exactly how long. Probably because he kept playing games till the end.
Yeah, exactly. So if we have wargaming heroes that are the heroes of wargaming, which we should probably do an actual thing about that. Mark's on that list.
I do want to throw in the caveat. We mentioned it ahead of time, but just as the hashtags are coming in, we'll ship to the U.S. If you're outside the U.S., sorry, we can't ship this to you because Ethan, the publisher, is the guy who's handling the shipping on that. So we've got to keep it stateside. You
don't want to get him to take a bath on $165 shipping to Luxembourg.
For something he nicely volunteered to do to us.
Mm-hmm.
You can hand deliver to Australia or you can pay to ship it to Australia. It's about the same cost. So,
yeah.
So yeah, whenever
I feel very bad for the fabulous Australian wargaming community, by the way, that they have they're getting it from Harry or they're paying $1 million to get it shipped to them.
Well, and you did see though that in the last GMT monthly update, they do have a distributor in Australia now that they're working with. So GMT stuff, at least you will be able to get in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Cheaper. I won't say, comparable to US costs, but less than the extortionate prices you were previously paying.
Right. Everybody all the publishers need to start shipping their war games through Poland because the Polish shipping costs appear to be very reasonable. I agree with this, by the way, Jeff Beeler. I think that, I mean, it could have been anything he was passionate about, but Mark's passion for war games was such that I think it probably did help him. I never asked him this, but I think it probably did help him deal with this situation.
Yeah, I got to ask, Perfidious Albion's asking about no shipping to Alaska. First of all, are you in Alaska? And if not, why do you care? But yes,
That's
Alaska
fair.
are U.S. addresses, so you can ship to Alaska. It's
Worst case, you could ship via flat rate to Alaska. So Alaska, Hawaii is not a problem.
I didn't say continental U.S. This isn't CONUS versus OCONUS. This is we were told by the publisher he could ship to anywhere in the U.S. after the convention. So
there you go.
So Sparky asking about when is GMT in Australia? Go read the latest GMT email.
Yeah, the monthly update from December.
Newsletter.
Yeah, it's all in there. They've made an arrangement with somebody with a company down in Australia to distribute their games.
Yeah. Molotov Cockatiel, we are not going to have Delta Airlines deliver your prize, so it's going to stay stateside.
You should call United and have them solicit them to offer the prize, because then you might get the shit beaten out of you on the flight.
Yeah, that's if you wanted to go to Europe first, hire an airline. So, cool. So yeah, again, Ethan, whenever you're watching this, because I know he was tied up this weekend, and that's
yeah.
We don't have that game on the agenda. He look. This is this holiday weekend in the U.S., and so some folks are using it for some midwinter travel, and try and cleanse the palate of having to be with the in-laws.
I just got a big argument with my wife about having to run to the grocery store. Okay, that's the weather we've got up here. It's been until today. It had been snowing, not at an incredible level of intensity. It had been snowing for about 5 days straight. So,
we were in Ohio the week between Christmas and New Year's. Went up to go see the family for a couple of days. We stopped by and hung with Gary for a couple minutes. My wife and I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the day, so we met Gary along the way for a couple minutes.
It's a delight to see them in lovely Mansfield, Ohio, or wherever it was.
Yeah, that was the nicest looking highway off ramp that we'd seen in at least 10 or 12 miles.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I picked that one just because of its luxuriousness.
Yeah. But the kids were pissed because it was in the 50s the entire time. It rained a bunch. It rained on the first day we were there. It rained on the first day and the last day. It was clear for the drive. It was perfect weather for the drive. It rained on the first day and the last day. No snow at all. The kids were bummed.
What'd you think of the Rock Hall, by the way?
So I had been back in 98 and enjoyed it quite a bit. I had a great time. I know some folks, if BB Mike is still in the chat, he'll start raining on the parade here. But I think there are some things that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame improve on. But by and large, I think they get it more right than wrong. And I think as a museum of the history as a whole, I think they do a pretty good job of trying.
The museum is really good. The induction and the Hall of Fame itself is Jan Venner had a we actually literally on the trip up to Noble Night I captured a half an hour of video about you, me, and Fucko ranting about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I have no idea where that video went.
And I'll tell you that was just the half hour he captured. That wasn't.
Yeah. There was more
half hours he didn't capture.
Yeah, there was a good 15 minutes of ranting before I even turned the phone on.
Yeah. As much as I love talking about war games, we could equally do weekly shows on music just as easily, and run several years the way your counter clipping show has.
Oh, we absolutely could. Frank, nice to see you here. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, and Frank is actually one of the shows tomorrow. He is the guest for Pushing Cardboard tomorrow.
What's that? What's the time slot on that, Brant? So people can tune in.
6 to 8. They lead into you guys on the Chit Show.
6 to 8, folks. I think you do want to tune in for that particular seminar. That's going to be very interesting. Frank's got some really interesting looking games in the pipeline.
Yeah. So tomorrow, the first one of the seminar discussions are a bunch of college students, not from Georgetown. It's the ones from Clarkson University up in New York. Some of you have seen on social media, Ali Kochko-Williams always posting pictures of the game cart that he's rolling to class. These are some of his students. and they've got a war game on the supply lines and logistics of the ongoing war in the Ukraine. So they're going to be telling us about their game. And then we've got a show with Keith Tracton, who is one of our designers that's got a bunch of games going on this weekend. Keith was in the chat earlier. I don't know if he's still here. And then we've got the one with Frank, and then you guys as the chit show at the end of it all.
Folks, the unlikely event that I start a rock band, I've already selected the name. It is Klingon Hug Dungeon. Based on a meme I saw like 2 months ago. So
that's who's doing the death growl vocals?
My wife, actually.
Okay, fair enough.
So my wife was a she hasn't done this in a number of years because we're old now, but she was a regular attendee in full getup as a Klingon warrioress. So
there you go,
folks. I married a woman that had her own swords. So
that is quite awesome.
So we got my swords in the house and my wife's swords in the house.
Yeah, my Christmas present for my wife was actually a membership to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So
that's cool too. But you are 700 miles away, so there's that.
I am. However, I do make regular trips to Columbus.
That's fair. So yeah.
My wife and I went on that trip this summer when I'm in town for Origins. The day after Origins, so that Monday afterwards, my daughter and I are going to go up there. So I'm going to take McKenna up there to go see it.
Excellent. That's excellent.
Cool for her. And once you've done 2 trips, the membership is paid for itself.
I'm trying to remember what my band name in the rock band video game was, and I can't remember what it was.
One of the cool things they have, I don't know when the last time you were at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, but one of the cool things they have is they've got a station on the second floor where they've got the studios that you can sit down and jam and play stuff and whatever. They've also got a thing where you can name your band and design your band logo, and it'll actually print you a couple of stickers for your band and band logo. And so the entire second floor, like all the walls and the columns and the bathroom doors and everything, are covered in stickers of people's made up band names.
100%. This experience was not available when I was there, which was about 15 or 16 years ago.
Yeah. It was cool. I had a great time, saw a lot of neat things. Got a lot of pretty good photos. One of the last shows, who's the guy that did My Own Private Idaho, the director? I'm totally spacing on his name. Famous dude, but I don't know. Absolutely spacing on Gus Van Sant.
Okay.
Like the last movie Gus Van Sant did before he passed away, he cut together this sort of highlight film from the Rock inductions, the Rock Hall inductions, with people talking about being inducted and what it means, but then a lot of the footage of some of the different shows, especially those end of the show jam sessions that they used to always do. And that was a fantastic little half-hour video to sit
I bet.
But then the other thing that was kind of cool is they had a thing going for Soul Train, because Don Cornelius was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
Okay.
And they had, one of the theaters was just running clips of live performances from Soul Train, all the different artists that appeared over the years. And of course, Don Cornelius introduces everybody as though he's selling insurance, right? Here's the most fabulous band in the world. They are on top of the charts. Here are the Spinners. And like total flat monotone. and then the Spinners come out and they just tear the place down. It's awesome. And we sat there and we're like, okay, we're more, and then we'll go. And like 3 more go by. Okay, we're going to watch 1 more, and then we're going to keep walking. And I mean, we were there probably 45 minutes just watching highlights from Soul Train.
Oh, yeah. I'll totally buy that.
Performances were awesome. It was great.
DJ Flippy, I could beat the swords anecdote, actually. My wife played Rollmaster.
Did she lose a bet?
No, but, that's what her friends were playing at the time. My affection for Rollmaster is so great, I'm not sure how to show it off. And I literally have a tattoo.
Just don't take any more clothing off at that point.
So, no, that's as good as it gets. Somebody has to see my tattoo at work. That was awkward. Like, yeah, no, I'm not showing you that. I'm not showing you this either. So,
Jeff, I have not played it, but I saw it being played at Gamma Expo last year. Unfortunately, Jackie Fox was not at the DeVere booth when I was walking around there. I'm not sure if she was there. I totally would have gotten an autograph and a selfie if she had been.
I showed John who's a Rollmaster guy, by the way. I showed John the whole tattoo because we were in the hotel room at the time. John was one of my roommates at Winterfest last year, and he's like, "Dude, it was fabulous."
At some point, you're going to spin the wheel, and we're going to figure out who's going to win this game, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to actually do that right now because nobody's. We'll do a last call. Hashtag Game Like Mark to win a copy of Forward Defense 85, Company Command in World War III from designer Ethan Redrup, who has kindly provided us with this giveaway, and published by Strategist's Den Games. So if anybody wants to put in a last-minute bid on this, I'll give you about a minute, and then we will do the giveaway. So yeah, this is nice. My wife is not into war games at all. If I was gonna like run D&D or shit Rollmaster, or something like or Traveler, she would 100% play. War games she is not into. So there's that.
I can get my wife to play Ticket to Ride with us, but that's it.
Yeah, last time I checked, that was not considered a war game by the experts. We consulted a panel of experts about whether Ticket to Ride was a war game, and they unanimously said no. So, I'll do the anecdote. It's brief before we and then I will push the button. Lots of folks who are regular attendees have heard this story before. So I'm playing Case Blue, right? We're playing at a buddy's house in Columbus, and for whatever reason, we only had one car available at the time. So my wife's like, "Oh, I'll drop you off. I'm going to go run a bunch of errands, and then I'll come back and pick you up in like 5 hours." So we're like 3 hours go by, and I get a text. "Oh, I'm out parked in the driveway. Whenever, take your time. I'm just knitting here in the car." And the host, my buddy in Columbus, says, "No. Have her come in. We're not going to have her sit out in the car." So she comes in, and for about 2 hours is like sitting there knitting and watching us play Case Blue. And we wrap it up. We get back in the car. We're driving home, and like within the first 2 minutes, she turns to me and says, "That is the most boring fucking thing I have ever seen in my life." Exact quote. Okay. So there's that. All right. So folks, I'm going to hit the draw button. Let's see who is the happy winner of Forward Defense 85. Sofa Kings. Congratulations to Sofa Kings. What do they need to do to cash in on this fabulous prize, Brant?
So I need Sofa Kings to get in touch with me for mailing address info. If I don't think you're using Sofa Kings as your Discord name. If you are one of the attendees this weekend, you can shoot an email over to Armchair Dragoons Events at gmail.com and let's get the mailing address info that we need to get over to Ethan to get that copy of the game sent to you.
Okay. Well, Mark, we're going to have future giveaways, so stay tuned. You'll win something sooner or later.
Mark needs to change his screen name to not me.
Yeah, but yeah, there you go. There you go. So congrats to Sofa Kings for the big prize here. Let me pull this down. And let's wrap it up. So again, folks, if you haven't seen it already, there's a link to the convention page in the video description. So it's not too late to sign up, although you may have missed the Friday events. But there are Saturday and Sunday events as well, including a whole bunch of really cool looking stuff. So it is worth your time to investigate. And attendance is almost free, as we've already covered. Only $4, and all the events are free. You just pay $4 for the convention.
Yep. And one of the things that we try to do we ask the GMs as much as possible to, if they're not already streaming to a YouTube channel or something like that, to at least turn on the screen share in Discord to allow folks to pop into the room and watch in Discord. Mm-hmm. And look, it's not the perfect replication of walking around a convention and looking over people's shoulders and going, "Hey, what's that? That looks cool." But it's as close as we can get using Discord. And so we're trying to still share and spread that love for folks to be able to see what's going on elsewhere in the convention as best we can. We've got other chats and conversations going on in Discord. Think of that as the lobby of the hotel where the convention's taking place. And that's what we try to do. It's fun. It can be a bunch of work, which is why we're looking for some help. But it's a good time, and we the attendees seem to enjoy it because they keep coming back. I think Jeff Beeler's actually been to every one of these.
All right, folks. So, as a reminder, at 8 p.m. tomorrow, this is a Armchair Dragoons digital convention exclusive. Dan Pancaldi and I will be hosting a Chit Show special edition with a variety of special guests chosen by Brant from among the convention participants. So, tune in for that. And any final remarks, Brant? Other than people should sign up and go play some cool games or listen to some cool seminars.
Yeah. Two things. One, with regards to the convention itself, don't be scared by the fact you may not have heard of a game in particular. We've got a bunch of smaller publishers that can't do a lot of big conventions. And so this is one of the things we try to do with the ACDC is to give them some exposure for what are, quite frankly, some pretty cool games. Mm-hmm. And not just, hey, they've worked hard on them, take pity on them. No, these are good games. And just because you haven't heard of them or seen them on a shelf somewhere or had them shoved down your throat somewhere else doesn't mean that they're not good games and aren't worth checking out. So,
and there's some pretty high profile upcoming things that are featured as well, like Order and Opportunity from Fez Arponen, which looks like a very interesting game, as well as a variety of other things. That's just I mentioned that because it was in the email that you sent me today.
Epipolae, which is the first of the Ancients Levying campaign games. But those are some of the ones folks have known. There's Big Bloody Battles, which is a minis game, but plays quick, as you would expect. The Robotech Reconstruction guys.
That's because they're busy painting the miniatures. They don't have time to actually play the game.
No kidding. The Robotech Reconstruction guys, like that got a lot of traction outside the war game world, but it is a very solid asymmetric war game in very similar to the coin games and openly inspired by them. So that's one to check out. The Code Atlas guys. Again, it's sort of supremacy in the near future, but it is a big global war game that can absorb a bunch of players. And those guys were here last year, and a bunch of folks who'd never heard of it took a chance. Like, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. So, again, they're not always big publishers or well-known names, but there's a lot of pretty snazzy games out there that folks can take a look at. So that is one thing. The other thing is, Gary, thank you for hosting the Welcome Happy Hour show. Appreciate it.
Delighted to be drafted again by the Armchair Dragoons. I told Brant last time we talked about this, it's like, you're getting as much out of me as you're going to get. So that's it. And I believe the wild turkey has had its intended effect at this time. So Perfect. We shall not be pouring any more of that particular beverage this evening. Folks, it's been fantastic. We've been running for almost 2 hours, actually. So I want to thank everybody for stopping by. By all means, check out the link in the video description to the Armchair Dragoons Digital Convention, which is running this weekend. Everybody have a great rest of the week, and I will see at least some of you tomorrow evening.